Dominick Cruz versus Casey Kenney takes place this weekend to headline the prelims of UFC 259, Blachowicz versus Adesanya, and I can't wait for this bantamweight bout. Dominick Cruz makes his return against Casey Kenney, a tough up-and-coming contender right now, not quite ranked in the bantamweight division, actually unranked right now. Dominick Cruz is taking on an unranked bantamweight in his next bout after previously fighting for the belt against Henry Cejudo. That is a drastic shift in levels of opponent, but Casey Kenney is very dangerous. He has all the momentum right now. He's on a win streak of 3. Lewis Smolka got a good win against him. Eli Lateng as well. Not two great names on his resume, but then stepped up against Nathaniel Wood, who was in the top 25. I don't think he won that fight against Nathaniel Wood, but it was a very close fight and he could have won it. We've seen some different decisions recently, so in all honesty, compared to the other decisions we've had, that's not really a brutal robbery, but that sounds horrible to say because I did believe that Nathaniel Wood got the job done over Casey Kenney, but you can't deny that Casey Kenney is a talented prospect on the rise right now, and the Wood fight was very close. I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of people actually scored that for Casey Kenney as well. Great matchup. Kenny's really skilled. He beat up on Eli Lateng. Dominick Cruz coming off a loss against Henry Cejudo. Before that, he lost to Cody Garbrandt. A little bit of a tricky situation right now for Dominick Cruz because, again, he's having to prove himself as, are you still Dominick Cruz, the top bantamweight for a while? Because even though he lost to Henry Cejudo on short notice, if he doesn't lose to Henry Cejudo on short notice or have that loss on his record, he might still be considered the greatest bantamweight of all time, because it's not like Cody Garbrandt went on to defend a whole bunch more times, and let's not forget that Dominick Cruz beat TJ Dillashaw once upon a time as well. He could still be considered right now even the greatest bantamweight of all time, even with that loss to Henry Cejudo, so there is a lot on the line here. If he loses, he goes down the road of an Anderson Silva or of another guy like a BJ Penn, where you've got all of this legacy and you're trying to redeem it and get back to make it undoubtable that you're the top guy in the division, but then again, you face that risk of losing everything and all kind of legacy overall. If Dominick Cruz loses here to Casey Kenney, let alone loses, if he loses dominantly, he's in a really bad situation because people forget about legacy like that. We have very short attention spans in the MMA world. I do believe that Dominick Cruz is going to go out there and get the jump on Casey Kenney. I know that Casey Kenney's a good fighter, but I do believe this is a ranked contender in the bantamweight division that was doing pretty good against Henry Cejudo, by the way, that is now taking on an unranked guy. I know that Cruz is older, but I don't think he should be the underdog here against Casey Kenney. I think it's a very close fight. I do see Dominick Cruz winning. I think he's fought way better competition. But then again, I'm not going to try. I'm trying to avoid the situation where I'm just looking at resumes and saying, well, Kenny's only done this and Cruz has fought these guys. Because, of course, Casey Kenney right now in his career is not going to have the big names that Dominick Cruz has on his resume. However, you can look at the way people have performed against different tiers of opponents. And I would argue that Dominick Cruz was very handily winning that second round until he got kneed in the face. And I know he got kneed in the face, but I'm looking for what happened in the fight. I know he got finished at the end of that fight and it was a bit of a weird stoppage, but then again, if that wasn't a championship fight, I don't think we're even talking about that stoppage. The fact that it was a championship fight is the only reason that there's any kind of discussion about early stoppage. A lot of legacy on the line. You kind of got to give him the chance at the end of the round. But if that wasn't a championship bout, I have no problem with that stoppage. That is a normal looking stoppage, and that is the kind of stoppage that we can expect to happen in a fight between him and Casey Kenney, where there's a lot less on the line anyway, so there's a lot to look at here. I just think that Dominick Cruz was looking so good against Henry Cejudo, and it wasn't just that he was looking good against Henry Cejudo. He was looking good against Henry Cejudo during a time where I thought he was retired. He was doing the commentary job. He takes a fight with Henry Cejudo on short notice after a couple of weeks' notice after Jose Aldo pulls out of the fight and looks good against him in the second round. He got his legs chewed up early, looked a little bit green like he was shaking off the cobwebs, but then the second round came around and Dominick Cruz started landing some good combinations. Looked like he rocked Henry Cejudo a couple of times with some good punches, snapped the head back a couple of times. Obviously, Cejudo eventually times that knee at the end of the round after an inadvertent clash of heads happened in the bout. They separate. They go back together. Cejudo's like, after the clash of heads, right, I'm going to make a statement here at the end of the round. Lands the knee on Dominick Cruz's chin. I just feel like Dominick Cruz is still looking pretty good. And I know that people are looking at losses and only the outcomes of the fights, but again, I'll mention this. He outlanded Cody Garbrandt every single round of their bout. I know that in between all of that, Cody Garbrandt caught him with shots, but we've seen Cody Garbrandt put the lights out on so many different bantamweights and hurt them badly, and Dominick Cruz has showed that it's not a chin issue that he's having at this point in his career. I know he's coming off a TKO loss, but the guy can take a shot. He's got great recovery time. Not only that, but Casey Kenney is not known as a KO artist finisher. I mean, Hila Alateng, if Casey Kenney had a lot of power and had that finishing power, Alateng would not still be standing at the end of that bout. I'm sure we can agree. If Casey Kenney had that kind of power, Nathaniel Wood would not be standing after that first round because Kenney caught him with a lot of flush shots. I don't think we have to worry about him KOing Cruz in this bout. I think this is going to be a decision win either way. Either Casey Kenney goes out there and does enough leg kicks early to secure himself the first 2 rounds or even all 3, or Dominick Cruz gets through the early situation with the leg kicks and comes back in the later 2 rounds to earn himself a 29-28 unanimous decision. And I think that's very, very likely because, again, I was just getting into this. Against Garbrandt, people remember that fight so differently than I do. And it confuses me because it gets sold as this greatest performance in a title fight of all time because Cody Garbrandt did a couple of shuffle steps and dance moves now again during it, but he was getting outlanded every single round of that bout, and he got knocked down in a couple of them, and they secured Cody Garbrandt those rounds. But other than that, look, 20-12 to Dominick Cruz in the first, 19-16 in the second, 20-17 in the third, 17-15 in the fourth, 12-8 in the fifth. He was doing good against Cody Garbrandt, and also he defended some takedowns in his bout against Henry Cejudo. Cejudo tried a couple of takedowns on Dominick Cruz, but Cruz was still able to defend. I'm not noticing signs of a guy slowing down. I just saw a guy get caught with a knee at the end of the second round after a clash of heads and go down and get a stoppage made that's okay of a stoppage, but like, I'm not seeing this older guy. And I saw him take on Cejudo on short notice, and he still looked good. But he did look like he was slowing down at some point in that second round, breathing a little bit heavier than usual. I think having this full camp for a fight with Casey Kenney, he's only going to look better than he did against Henry Cejudo. And if better than he did against Henry Cejudo shows up here as Dominick Cruz this weekend, then he's going to do better than a guy who was beating Cejudo for the entire second round before getting caught with a knee. Like, I think he's a very dangerous contender still in the bantamweight division. I think he's a live dog here against Casey Kenney, and I think Casey Kenney's got a lot of momentum right now, but just not against the same level. Not against the same level. A close decision win over Nathaniel Wood that I thought Nathaniel Wood won pretty clearly in the second and third round, and then Casey Kenney slows down in that bout, doesn't really push the pace like he did against a guy who was shelling up in Hila Alateng. I think Cruz can do what Nathaniel Wood did, if not to a better level, and take advantage of Casey Kenney in those second and third rounds. I don't think Kenny's as patient in the championship situation as Henry Cejudo is. I know this isn't a championship situation, but it's the biggest moment of Casey Kenney's career, and Cejudo was so patient out there. Cruz has been out for a very long time. Cejudo knows that. He's very calm. He's landing his leg kicks. It looked like it took Cruz a long time to get back into things. And this is another thing I want to talk about. I know Dominick Cruz says ring rust isn't real, but his fight with Cejudo is very obvious that ring rust is real. First round, terrible. Second round, Cruz is back in action, doing everything that he used to do before, landing good combinations, landing great combination shots, good leg kicks on Henry Cejudo in the second round. Cejudo was landing back, don't get me wrong, but it was very obvious that Cruz woke up and became himself in the second round of that bout, even while looking a little bit more tired than he usually does. I think Dominick Cruz goes out there this weekend, knowing he has 3 rounds to fight and not 5. It's going to be a bit of an easier training camp overall. It's going to be a little bit easier on his mind as well to not have to worry about looking at 4 and 5 and just know that he's got 3 rounds to work with. I think we're going to see the best Dominick Cruz that we've seen over the past few years, and that's only 2 performances, I know. But I think he's going to actually dance rings around Casey Kenney in this bout. I think he's going to eat some leg kicks early. But even against Henry Cejudo, those leg kicks he was eating, kept eating them. And he was doing okay in the second. He took so many leg kicks in the first round. Didn't seem to do too much to him. And I think a lot of people are betting on this fight for Casey Kenney. Because, Cruz ain't got it no more. It's not about who's better at fighting. Who do you think actually wins, Cruz or Kenney? It's about, Kenney on the rise, Cruz on the slide. That's what I'm getting right now from these predictors that are saying that Kenny's going to win. And there's a good chance that Casey Kenney does go out there and is the real contender that we're looking for here and gets a good win over Dominick Cruz. But another thing that a lot of people have been saying here, Dominick Cruz has single-handedly picked this bout. He's had a full camp for this one, which is much better than his last fight against Henry Cejudo. He's going to be in shape to fight here. And he's going to be ready for a style because he could have been in good shape. He could have been getting ready for a marathon like Felder was against RDA. We saw how that works out though. You're not doing the MMA movements. You're You're not defending takedowns in camp. You're not getting your timing down in sparring and things like this. And you can be in good shape for a fight, but you're not in fight shape. You know what I mean? Dominick Cruz needs a long time, especially a guy like Dominick Cruz. There must be so much game planning that goes into his game, the way he does his footwork. He must have so many reads that he likes to make on his opponents before he goes out there and fights them. So I'm thinking, like, for Dominick Cruz, a full camp is probably more needed than it is for other fighters that are just going to go out. Like, John Lineker and Dominick Cruz are going to take the game planning phase of their fights very differently and to different extremes. You know, I feel like Dominick Cruz, it's all about the game plan. It's all about finding tendencies. It's all about figuring out the patterns that he's going to use out there. But for John Lineker, it's, hey, me, you Blaj, we swing, fight. You know, like, it's not the way Dominick Cruz is going to break down fights. I think giving him that time is going to be good for him. He's a massive guy for the bantamweight division as well. Doesn't look like he's slowing down, and he's got a full camp. And also, ring rust, he hasn't been out for that long this time. So, normally we're used to seeing Cruz, he's out for 2 years. Has he still got it before the Cejudo fight? Now he's been back in, 7 months removed from his last bout? Maybe more, actually. Probably about 9 months removed. I don't even remember when he took on Henry Cejudo. I think it was UFC 249, though. In May. So, he's been out for a while. We're looking at 10 months. Not too bad for a Dominick Cruz layoff, in all honesty. He's had some time off after the Cejudo loss. I'm assuming he got right back in there. I trust Cruz in this one. And he selected Casey Kenney. And he could have had any choice. And I'll mention this again. Rafael Assunção was right there. Marlon Moraes, right there. Coming off a KO loss to Rob Font. You could even look at a Jimmy Rivera about right now. His calf kick just got swollen up. Hey, Rivera, I want you in 4 months. Rivera's going to say, well, my leg's fucked up, but it's Cruz. Yeah, I'll take the Cruz fight, 100%. Like, he could have had so many other fighters right now that do better for him in the rankings, but he picked Casey Kenney. That either tells me that he's going out on top with a win, but I don't think he is. A lot of people have been making that assessment. He's picked Casey Kenney. He wants to get a quick win before the end of his career and then go out on top against a great style matchup that he sees for himself. I don't think that's the case. I think Dominick Cruz wants to continue. I think Dominick Cruz is going to beat Casey Kenney, and he knows he could be coming off a win against anyone, but so long as he's coming off a win, he has power to jump himself up those rankings because there are so many big fights with Cruz's name attached to them. If TJ loses his comeback bout and Cruz is coming off a win over Casey Kenney, they're going to make the TJ Dillashaw versus Dominick Cruz rematch. If Dominick Cruz is coming off a win over Casey Kenney and Garbrandt still hasn't got an opponent and hasn't been selected against anyone in the bantamweight division and everyone else is getting opponents, they're going to do Garbrandt versus Cruz too. Like, if Jan's coming off a loss to the belt against Sterling and he needs a bounce back opponent and Cruz is coming off a win, they're going to do Jan versus Cruz. He's got that name value. I think he knows that he could be coming off a win against anyone. Just the fact that he's coming off a win is enough to give him that power in the negotiating room. And I think he knows that the easiest test out of everyone he's looked at in the rankings is Casey Kenney for him, as far down as it goes. And Kenney was ranked at a time, which is obviously why he picked him over other unranked guys, because he had that ranking. Now he doesn't have the ranking. I wouldn't be surprised if they switched over Marlon Vera's name and Casey Kenney's in the next few days or something, just in the lead up to this event to make it seem like a bigger fight. However, Dominick Cruz goes out there and gets the job done. I think he dances around. The leg kicks of Kenney are going to be dangerous. He's got good ones. I don't think he can use them the way Cejudo can, because Cejudo, like, springs into his kicks. Like, he's planted, and then he, like, sort of shuffles in a bit, and Kenny's a little bit stationary. He waits for guys to shell up against the cage, then he starts unloading. Like, Hilal Lateng is not in any way the same level of footwork as Dominick Cruz. He was just accepting punishment in that bout because he didn't know what to do. And I think Cruz has still got it. I think he's got great grappling as well. I don't think he'll use his grappling, but maybe he'll go in there for a couple of takedowns. Kenny will stuff them. He's got a great judo background, so I think he'll be good in the takedown department. But I think on the feet, Cruz is going to win. I think he's a better striker than Casey Kenney. I think he's proven that. And I would argue a fight where you kind of lost to Nathaniel Wood isn't quite the same where you're in a fight and you're outlanding Cody Garbrandt until getting clipped. Like, it's just different levels of opponents. And we've seen Cruz, he's not off a big layoff this time. I think he goes out there and gets it done. More hungry than ever. We haven't seen him too much on the commentary team or anything like that. Like, you got to remember, Cruz was in a different mindset when they were announcing Aldo versus Cejudo. He was just, like, chilling, doing a commentary job, things like this. Now he's known for ages that he's got a fight. I trust him to go out there and beat Casey Kenney. And if he doesn't get clipped by that knee at the end of the Cejudo fight in the second round, He could be still doing well in the third, in the fourth. You don't know these things. I think Cruz, I'm going to trust him on this one. And I think I'm going to pick him as an underdog. These are the kind of underdogs you pick, because it's not about a skill matchup that people are picking Kenney. It's about a what if Cruz hasn't got it anymore. I think what ifs and underdogs, chuck it in. Unless I know something's going to happen, I'm not going to make a guy an underdog. You know what I mean? Like, if it's just oh, we don't know, so let's just play on the safe side and put him as an underdog because he's older and we've seen this pattern before. Like, I think Dominick Cruz has still got it, and I think he goes out there and wins a 29-28 unanimous decision against Casey Kenney in the second and third round. Gets it done. Kenny's going to come out in the first with a lot of aggression, but I think Cruz eventually starts getting over on him. Second and third round, landing a few more shots. I think he wins that way, 29-28. Thank you for watching the video. Like and subscribe. Dominick Cruz gets the win, and if he does get the win, I'm down to watch him versus any big name in the bantamweight division if he wants to continue. If he doesn't want to continue, that's okay. I don't see why he wouldn't want to, because there are so many big names right now. And if he wins this one and wins another one, it's Cruz for a title shot, and everyone forgets about his loss to Henry Cejudo because it was on short notice, and that will be the narrative moving forward. Thank you for watching the video. Like and subscribe. The greatest bantamweight of all time gets it done once more against a contender in Kenney. Moving on to nothing, because the video's over. Click that button up there. Goodbye. Toodle pip.